Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello, welcome to the show. I don't mean to sound disconsolate, but I think I'm feeling that way. Yes, it is to be a Throwback Thursday, and I don't pretend to be ready to do that. I tried. I tried, and I think I failed. Apologies to all. I have a few things that I think can avoid reality for a little bit. It's not that Throwback Thursdays have to avoid reality. I guess, I'm sorry, guys, I don't know. Listen, I watched something last night that I thought was really good. And I want to pass it on to you because while it is not devoid of references to the problems of bigotry that have beset our country and humanity since their inception, it is, I think, just a really delightful documentary. And for those of a certain age, it is a blast into our past. The documentary is called Sunday Best, and it is on Netflix. And it is about a TV program that aired on Sunday nights in the 50s and into the 60s in the United States. And one, because there were so few channels, that literally the entire nation watched together. And the documentary is about how that one show so helped bring Americans together in a way that they had not, and how it advanced the cause of civil rights. And it's the Ed Sullivan Show. So it's about Ed Sullivan, and I have to tell you, I will never ever feel the same about him as I will since watching that. I used to make jokes about Ed Sullivan because I found him such a unlikely television personality, such a stiff. I mean, comedians would come on the show and make fun of him to his face because of the stiffness of his delivery. But what I hadn't realized is the impact that show had, and how it only had that impact because of the man. Because Ed Sullivan was a courageous, principled man who fought CBS, who fought the advertisers, who took on the public, because he did something that hadn't been done. If you turned on your television in the 50s, what you saw was uniformly white. It was white folks. And the only black people you saw were either in blackface or were doing the step and fetch it, yes and no stuff. And Ed Sullivan, who actually was born in Harlem, when he was born there, was a neighborhood of Jews and Irish. And then black folks started moving in. And he continued going to Harlem, the music scene, and he so appreciated the impact of black music that he wanted to, share it. So he started putting black musicians on his show on lily white American television. And it didn't occur to me that I, as a kid in 1954 or 1955, watching on that little TV screen in my house in Green Bay, a city that had one black family. And the radio stations played no black music. And so the first I must have ever heard was because of Ed Sullivan. And I think you can multiply me, a little girl in Green Bay, and her parents, and her siblings, and people all over the country, to the impact of being introduced to this amazing cultural richness that had been shut out of our purview, not played on our radios, not seen on our TVs. And Ed Sullivan the documentary, one of the wondrous things about it is that you get to see a lot of the acts that he brought on. So it was the first time, America saw James Brown. The first time they saw the Jackson 5. The first time they saw Bo Diddley. And on and on and on. The Supremes. And he was constantly told, you got to stop this. You can't do it. They're going to we're going to lose our southern viewers. You just can't do it. And the advertisers aren't going to want to be there with you. And he simply refused. It's an eye-opener. And it also has the effect of reminding us how the racism, the ugliness, the division that we're seeing now is nothing new. It has been a part of the American fabric forever. And those of us who have celebrated victories of progress the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and then felt like somehow those things were secured. We're seeing now that that's what silly innocence, naivete. Nothing is secured. Nothing. Because that horribly large segment of America that can't move forward, that holds on to its bigotry, never stops fighting to get back. And I mean back. They would take us back to a place they want to be, where they're comfortable, where black people are invisible again and know their place, where women know their place. They really want to go back to that. And so this documentary, you see, I'm not sure, what one of the horrific southern governors, was it Faubus or Talmadge? I think it might have been Talmadge. I mean, you see him flat out saying, the things that were said. That the idea of blacks and whites mixing was so repulsive. And then you cut to the Ed Sullivan show, and there he is with his arms around a black person. He had Nat King Cole and Tony Bennett, Tony somebody, a white guy, singing and dancing together, which would have been mind-blowing to people. A few times he exchanged kisses with black women on screen. My God, people must have passed out. And the thing is, they're still passing out. Those people are still, they're like the Walking Dead. We can't rid ourselves of them. One of the amazing clips is Stevie Wonder's first appearance on the Ed Sullivan show. He was 13 years old. 13 years old, and this skinny, blind kid, and he lets loose with a harmonica. And my God, the virtuosity is just mind-blowing. And then he starts singing, and damn, the audience, this all-white audience, starts singing with him. He says, "Say yeah," and they say yeah. And he says, "Say yeah," and they say yeah. And they're singing with this black kid. And the power, I had never realized the power of that show. And how much we owe Ed Sullivan. Yeah. Amazing. Just flat out amazing. And Harry Belafonte is interviewed quite a bit in the documentary. And the network absolutely, even after Sullivan was bringing black performers on, absolutely told Sullivan that there's no way Belafonte was getting on. because he wasn't just black. He was a commie. And Belafonte went to Sullivan's home and spoke with him. And he didn't deny that he supported what would be looked at as communistic influences. And he talks about the conversation they had, the two of them. And he left the hotel still thinking he wasn't going to be on the show. And he gets home and his agent calls and says, "You're on." So Sullivan, I don't know. I mean, it's amazing. He stood up to the network guys over and over and over again. And in so doing, he so enriched our culture, our lives. And he helped launch these careers, or mainstream them, I guess. They were all there, but they were invisible to white America. It's on Netflix. I recommend it as a history lesson, as fun, just for seeing all of these acts. And I'll never think of Ed Sullivan in the same way again. Wow. Just wow. Change. None of us, I suspect, are very good at it. I mean, we all, tend to dig in our heels. Not all. I know there are some that are more easily open to change. But boy, there are some who quite clearly, and they're a troublesome bunch, who quite clearly can't move into the future. And they are a constant problem. And they're feeling their oats now. There's a lot of change going on just in the city. People aren't going to the theater like they used to. We're all just sitting home. And as a result, the local theater scene is hurting. And so, City Theater on the south side, the Public Theater at the O'Reilly, CLO, they're in talks to figure out what they can do together to survive. So there are three proud, separate companies with histories of their own and different ways of approaching live theater. And they know that the only way they're going to stay alive is by coming together. And change is hard. It is. The Catholic community has seen, because of falling numbers of people going to church, to Mass, has seen these, difficult consolidations of parishes, of churches being shuttered, schools being shuttered. The Pittsburgh public schools are going through that now. These are always such wrenching, difficult things. But they must be done. Change is inevitable. And there are always those who stand in the doorway saying, no, I want it just like it was. And they are perennial losers, even if they secure moments of victory, as they are enjoying now. My synagogue is going through this now. The two Reformed synagogues in Pittsburgh, Temple Sinai and Road of Shalom, are merging. So there will be just one. And that too is about falling enrollment, membership in that religious communal life. And it's another reason, I think, that we're in the difficult time we are, that those institutions that brought people together, those churches, synagogues, communal things, even local theater companies, all of them are struggling because people ain't joining up like they used to. Those community, what are they called? Like the Elks and the Optimist Club and those kinds of things. They're just gone, aren't they? Or they're hanging on by a thread. And I suspect it ain't good. That's my guess. It ain't good. Anyway, I wanted to tell you, most of all, watch Sunday Best. I'd gone to Netflix because actually Milton had given me a heads up about what he said was a show he found to be a wonderful distraction, and it was on Netflix. And so I had gone to Netflix to look up, what is it called? Short story short. I'm screwing up the name. And I did, Milton. I watched 2 episodes. I think I have a slightly different reaction to it than you. It is so Jewy, you'll pardon the expression. It is so just immersed in all of those tropes of Jewish family life, the stereotypical stuff. And as a Jew, I react to some of it with, delight and recognition, and to others I sort of, think, ugh. It's weird, but it's very, it's over the top, and I think a lot of people would find it funny, but I don't know how many non-Jews would find it funny. I'm seeing some folks saying, little Tony saying, hi, just wanted to say hello, let you know I'm still out here. I often comment in the chat box while you're broadcasting. So glad you were able to correct the volume issue. Because I'm someone who is hearing impaired. The sound is excellent now. I hope you can find some glimmer of hope in these dark times. I have never felt more discouraged. Take care. Tony. Thank you, Tony. Well, no, I've never felt more discouraged either. Never. Oh my God. And now Bob sends me a picture. Oh my God. What the hell? Bob in Braddock says, I was minding my business on Facebook the other day and I suddenly found this photo of you with Myron Cope, Uncle Dougie, Doug Hirth, and Bruce Kiden, who was a sports writer who then got a sports talk show, or wasn't it? Maybe it wasn't just sports talk. I think it was just general talk on WTAE, and there we are. Myron, Doug, me, and Bruce. And everybody's dead. But that grinning woman in the middle with the big hair. Damn. Long story short, thank you. Actually, Milton, I have a friend. I had an uncle, Uncle Louie, who always said, and everybody has people like this in their lives, right? Who say, well, to make a long story short, and then they don't. Right? Anybody who says to make a long story short never does. And is in fact usually wholly incapable of it. And I have a dear, dear friend who does that. And to make a long story short, she'll say, and I've called her on it, and other people have as well. And so now, when she says it, she often says it and then laughs. Because now she's hearing herself saying it. But yeah. Long story short. A lot of funny Jews doing Jewish humor. I mean, the mother is so, I mean, it's just so, you know, that I think I react, I think I have the idea of Jewish mothers, that comedic trope, the Jewish mother, I mean, she's awful. I mean, the caricature. And, I mean, bears no resemblance, by the way, to my mom or her mom, but I've met some of these people who do, and I think I find that caricature, I get defensive about it, I think. But I recognize, you know, all these stereotypical ethnic tropes are based in a measure of, you know, people recognize where it's coming from, but they can lead to troubles, in fact. Oh, man. Isn't there a phrase about grand juries and when how they explain, you know, a grand jury, you know, indicts somebody, gets indicted because a grand jury, a bunch of regular people sitting in a grand jury, decides to indict you. And the saying, isn't it? It's you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Am I making that up? I don't think so. I think that is one. And the reason is because a grand jury doesn't hear both sides of the story. A grand jury sits and the prosecution comes in and lays out their case. There ain't no defense. Whoever they're accusing doesn't have any representation. And so, yeah, if prosecutors go in, they own the place. And so it is a rarity that a grand jury doesn't indict. They indict 99% of the time. Which is why it's such a riot that in the case, I don't think it was a ham sandwich. The guy who threw the sandwich at some, I don't know, some police type person. There's so many different ones in Washington, D.C. He screamed at him, "You're a fascist," and then he threw his submarine sandwich at him. And was it Pam Bondi who immediately said she would charge him with a felony? And he was charged with a felony, and the prosecutors went to the grand jury, and the grand jury laughed him out of court. So it's not necessarily the case that you can get a grand jury to indict a Subway sandwich. We know that much because they laughed him out of court. I want to give a high five to that D.C. grand jury. God bless them. God bless them. Oh, boy. I got a letter, and it said, "Don't throw this out." And it was from some, it said, "Voter Registration Office, Allegheny County." And it looked, it was like, oh, my God, what is this? What is this? And I opened it, and it went on, and I had to, unfold it, and here it was. It said, "According to our review, someone at this address might not be registered to vote." And so it's this big form asking me to register to vote. Well, I have to tell you, normally I would just laugh and throw it out. Instead, in this day and age, I got nervous. I thought, the only person at this address is me. How could their record show I, who have voted in every damn election, special, primary, general, you name it, since I was 18 years old? No, since I was 21, come to think of it. How could their record show that I was not registered? And there's no way on here that I can't register again. Then I thought, well, if you fill this out, they'll think you're trying to engage in voter fraud by being registered twice. Now, obviously, I can call. But it's just another damn thing to do. And I would normally have not thought anything about it. But given the fact that the next elections are potentially going to be rigged, fiddled with, efforts to close down voters in blue cities like me, I've just got immediately nervous. And I'm sure you understand why. Milton says, "Where the hell is Fetterman?" I get things from him every once in a while. And I want to respond. I want to say, "You're dead to me." I just want to say, shut the F up. You are dead to me. We shouldn't have elected him. I mean, I'm not saying we should have elected the Republican. No, but we should have in the primary not fallen for him. What a joke. So, okay, guys. Oh, and speaking of the ham sandwich, there was an article, I don't know where it was, but it quoted a guy in Washington, just a guy who lives there, described him as a construction worker, 49 years old. And, well, here's his quote. I'm not against the police, but I am against boots on my street, and we don't want to feel like we're in North Korea. Okay, so there's a construction worker. I guess so we have a certain stereotype there. We're thinking probably Trump voter, and he makes clear, I'm not against the cops, but he's pissed at these soldiers in his town, and rightfully sees it as like being in a police state, North Korea. So that's one of the little inklings of like good news I saw, that one of the things that's being seen in Washington is a coming together of the residents, white, black, construction workers, who knows who, in all being outraged. So that's good, I think. Just wanted to find a little something. And Paul writes, I know some of these clubs are taking, I was talking about like the Elks and stuff. I know some of these clubs are taking new members that would typically be outside of their usual criteria. I'm as Irish can be, and I was able to join the Polish Falcons Club with an existing member as my sponsor. And I know a local Ukrainian club that does the same, and some places similar to these two get invigorating crowds. Well, so yeah, I guess so. If you want to join up, they're saying, you can join the Polish club. We take the Irish. No problem. I love it. That's good. That's good to know. Because communal activity is so important. Says a woman who, by the way, doesn't join anything. I haven't said anything about the shooting. I guess I didn't know it happened while I was on the air yesterday. And I don't know what can be said. I think the fact that the dead, thank God, perp was fucked up 23-year-old, not surprising. 23-year-old male who identified as female. Does now he, get to be the first female school shooter? Has there ever been a female school shooter? I don't think just because he wants to be a female, we should let him sully the women in that way. I'm just saying. Because here's a guy, he self-identifies. I don't care what he says. You're going to take this person's word for anything? I mean, he's as fucked up a human as you can be. And a lot of what he apparently scrawled all over the place is exactly what the guy who shot up the Jews a Tree of Life here. He went after the same organization, HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. So clearly he was very aware of what had happened here. He had more anti-Jew stuff written down than anti-Catholic stuff. But that was a school he'd gone to, right? He hated everybody. He hated himself. What he did to all those kids, living and dead. Unspeakable. And what happens to a kid's faith who's praying to their Lord as the bullets start flying? My God. You know, in the Atlantic, David Frum has a very long piece. Oh, wow. Here's another end of a... After over 150 years, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution will stop publishing a print newspaper. Well, so the Atlanta Journal-Constitution had a 150-year run. The United States of America had a 249-year run. Things don't last. Things change. Frum says this, and I found it interesting. And let me just, he says, liberalism is inspired by the ideal of liberty or freedom. Fascism is inspired by the search for enemies of the group. That search for outsiders, for the other, for enemies, he says, is the emotional juice on which fascism feeds. I'd never seen that before, so clearly laid out, but as you look at what Trump and MAGA, what excites their base, it is always about othering something. They love to feel rage. I mean, all you have to do is look at like the Cracker Barrel logo thing. The rage. It's nonsense. And he goes into how it is often just ridiculous. But that's the juice that keeps them fired up. Being angry at, and fill in the blank, because they've got a lot of things that can set them off and bring them together. And he says, because this rage is so unhinged, that one of the greatest tools to use against them is humor, is ridicule, is calling the ridiculousness out. And he points out how one of the greatest artistic put-downs of fascism, I was talking about this the other day with my son, is Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. If you've never seen it, you have to. It's brilliant. Brilliant. And Chaplin in that mocked great Hitler. And then the movie ends with this, as my son was saying, this extraordinary speech about our common humanity. Extraordinary speech. The great dictator. But I appreciate that sort of distillation of what fuels these people that we have to defeat somehow. It's clear how much they love to hate, love to be enraged, and it does give them power and unity. For instance, of how you've always got to have an enemy. Trump, I didn't see this, but I read it again on a reliable source. I think it might have been Heather Cox Richardson. That Trump, it says here, Trump on Wednesday said that George Soros and his son, Soros, as you know, Hungarian Jewish Holocaust survivor and billionaire. Trump said that George Soros and his son should face federal racketeering charges, and Trump claimed, without any evidence, of course, that Soros and his son are backing violent protests in the United States. Now, the guy who killed all the Jews at Tree of Life also thought Soros was behind immigrants coming in here. This idea of the Jew, the rich Jew, manipulating things to take our nation down, is a classic Nazi trope. And here's Trump, who's supposedly fighting anti-Semitism on college campuses, using this to gin up the oldest anti-Semitic canard in the books. Yeah. And then one more on this, because it is starting to take root. There's a guy who was interviewed. He's a scientist named David Schiffman. He was explaining why he quit Twitter. And he said this: you know, when I talk about fish, he must be a ichthyologist or something, a fish expert, I don't know. He says, when I talk about fish on Blue Sky, which is a, not Twitter, but a social media platform. When I talk about fish on Blue Sky, people ask me questions about fish. When I talk about fish on Twitter, people threaten to murder my family because we're Jews. Yeah, that's it. That's Elon Musk's Twitter, which is now just wholly filled with this kind of stuff. Read the voter registration again. The mail was addressed to current resident. It was. They filled in my address, but you're right, they don't have my name. Right. Thank you. Thank you. So they're looking to register voters. Yeah. So I don't have to worry about this. What? And Milton says, my son was asked to join and did join the Eagles Club. As a black man, this was unimaginable 20 years ago. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. I got a few more things. Sorry. Sorry. What are they? I got them. I just sometimes, headlines. I cannot bear. I just can't bear to read the story. I have not talked about the White House firing the director of the Centers for Disease Control. It's unbelievable. It's just effing unbelievable. A whole bunch of other people under her resigned. There will be nobody left with any integrity or ability to do the job. We're on our own when it comes to health care now. In so many ways, it's ridiculous. And in fact, where you used to look maybe to the government for, information, we won't ever trust what they're telling us again. Here's a headline. I didn't read the rest. ICE asks for access to Chicago area naval base. That's all I need. I think what they're talking about, that's Great Lakes Naval Base. There was actually a stop when I took the train from Green Bay to Chicago. That was actually a stop right before Evanston and then Chicago. Wow. Okay, here's another one. Trump fires top Russia expert from CIA after Alaska summit. Putin must have said, you got this troublesome guy at CIA who's on to us. I think you should get rid of him. He's gone. And here's another doozy. The Department of Homeland Security is now barring volunteer groups from helping undocumented immigrants. So several disaster groups that work with FEMA have said they've been told they are not to help anyone who is not a citizen. Can you imagine? The ugliness and cruelty of this crowd knows no bounds. And yeah, so now not only is D.C. got boots on the ground, they've got boots on the ground from the FBI, the Secret Service, the National Guard guys from Louisiana, from who knows where. They got them from everywhere. All those people are in D.C. now. And you see what some of them are doing. They're putting down mulch in parks. There's nothing for them to do. Can you imagine getting called up as a National Guardsman and you end up doing landscaping? I suspect all the people who were doing landscaping are fearful of being seen because they'll be grabbed by the troops. And on top of it now, the guys who were in the diplomatic security service, they're supposed to secure the State Department. They've been called up and are now doing beat cop work in D.C. Something they are totally not. You can't make it up. And so now you'll have National Guard if you happen to take a bus or a train into D.C., you will be greeted by, boots on the ground. And now we understand that they're going to take over Union Station, the feds. Anyone who doesn't see what's going on here for what it is willfully blind. This is an unambiguous message. They will use military force to suppress, silence, intimidate any one of us. This is not about public safety. Of course not. It is a show of state police power. And it is designed to make anybody think twice about standing up to them. So, by transforming the nation's capital into a visibly occupied city, the intent is to create a climate of fear for anybody who witnesses it, sees it, lives in it, walks into it. And it tends to keep people quieter. This is how dictators operate. Yeah, they go after the laws and the norms. We've seen a lot of that. But they do it through displays of force that make resistance seem futile. So, every one of those National Guard troops, every one of those ICE agents, every one of them, the diplomatic service, the Secret Service, all of those guys visible in some public space is a warning. And he wants to do it in Chicago. He wants to do it in Baltimore. He wants it all over the place. You think this is 8 months in? We're well over a year until those midterm elections. What do you think America's going to look like by the time those elections take place? Oh, I appreciated this. When the woman at CDC was told to get out, as I said, other people did resign as well. And I thought I had one here. Oh, dang it! Where did I put it? I'm not going to be able to find it in time. I'm sorry. It was, I think, a really well-written... here it is. I got it. This guy worked as the director of the CDC's National Center for Immunization. That was his job until yesterday. And when they went after his boss, he resigned. And he said this, in part. His name is Dmitry Daskalakis. And he said, the recent shooting here is not why I am resigning. My grandfather, who I am named after, stood up to fascist forces in Greece, and he lost his life doing so. I am resigning to make him proud. Oh. We all need to make those who fought fascism, all those World War II veterans in our family history, our fathers, our grandfathers, grandmothers, in some cases mothers. I want to say we need to act to make them proud. We really, really do. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you. God help us.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.